In 1995, Martin Scorsese unleashed Casino, a 3-hour descent into the neon-lit hell of Las Vegas, where fortunes were made, lives were destroyed, and the mafia's grip on Sin City slowly unraveled. But what happened behind the scenes might even be more shocking than what ended up on the screen. So let's dive into the first disturbing truth about this film. Imagine a major motion picture going into production without its source material even being completed. Martin Scorsese began shooting Casino while author Nicholas Pileggi was still writing the book it was based on. Pileggi was conducting interviews with real mobsters while simultaneously co-writing the screenplay. He compared it to, quote, building an airplane while flying it, unquote. Scorsese rushed because authentic 1970s Vegas locations were rapidly disappearing. The book wouldn't be published until 1995, after filming wrapped. But here's where things get twisted. Wait until you hear about the calculated gamble Scorsese played with the film's most disturbing scene. The second fact will make you question everything about film censorship. That stomach-turning moment where Joe Pesci crushes a man's head in a vice until his eyes pop out? Scorsese never wanted it in the final cut. That vice torture scene was Scorsese's decoy. He often included an outrageously violent scene that he's willing to sacrifice so censors leave the rest intact. He assumed the MPAA would demand its removal, protecting other violent moments like the baseball bat execution. The twist? The MPAA approved it with only minor edits. Scorsese was stunned. The scene he thought was throwaway became one of cinema's most disturbing moments. And yes, the real-life enforcer, Tony the Ant Spilatro, actually used this torture method, except his victim didn't survive. Speaking of brutal reality, the next fact involves actual pain that happened twice to the same actor. Now here's something that sounds like a cruel joke from the universe. In 1980, while filming Raging Bull, Robert De Niro accidentally broke one of Joe Pesci's ribs during a boxing scene. Pesci finished the shoot anyway. Fast forward 15 years to Casino. During that brutal cornfield execution scene, Pesci was slammed to the ground so hard that he broke the same rib De Niro had fractured 15 years earlier. And just like before, Pesci didn't stop production. The man literally gave his body to these roles, breaking the same bone for 2 different Scorsese films. But here's what's really going to mess with your head about the burial scene. The next revelation is going to shatter an illusion you've held for nearly 30 years. That horrifying finale where we see Nick Santoro gasping for air, dirt covering his face, body twitching, it's not Joe Pesci being buried alive. It's a highly advanced animatronic dummy. Scorsese couldn't actually bury a real actor under real dirt during suffocation. That's insanely dangerous. The effects team needed to show dirt falling onto Nicky's face while he gasps, blinks, and twitches. The animatronic was so realistic that most viewers never realized it wasn't Pesci until behind-the-scenes footage was released years later. And if you think that's the only way Scorsese pursued authenticity at any cost, what Scorsese did next was either brilliant or completely insane. Instead of building sets, Scorsese filmed inside the Riviera Hotel and Casino during overnight hours while the casino was still operating. Real gamblers at real tables, slot machines flashing, security cameras watching every dollar, and in the middle of all that, a full film crew shooting a major motion picture. Real casino guards stood alongside the crew, and any money on screen had to be accounted for. The Riviera was demolished in 2015, but thanks to Casino, its presence is preserved forever. But the commitment to realism didn't stop at locations. The next factor blurs the line between fiction and reality in the most unsettling way. Oscar Goodman, who played Ace Rothstein's attorney, wasn't acting. He was an actual Las Vegas defense attorney who represented real mobsters, including some of the very people who inspired Casino's characters. From the 1960s through the 1990s, Goodman represented high-profile mafia figures. When Scorsese needed a mob lawyer, he went straight to the source. Goodman's performance feels authentic because he was essentially reliving moments from his actual career. Years later, he became the mayor of Las Vegas. But while Goodman walked onto the set completely comfortable, one major star was convinced Scorsese didn't even want her. What happened to Sharon Stone before filming almost destroyed her confidence. Her first meeting with Scorsese? Canceled. The second meeting? Canceled again. Stone, fresh off Basic Instinct's success, was fighting against being typecast. She was convinced Scorsese was deliberately avoiding her. When the third meeting finally happened, everything changed. Stone later said, "I thought Scorsese didn't like me. I was hurt, but when we finally met, it was magical." Her performance became the only one from the film to receive an Oscar nomination. Fascinating twist: Stone had auditioned for Scorsese 15 years earlier for Raging Bull, but didn't get the part. Casino was her redemption, and her dedication showed, especially considering the staggering amount spent on what she wore. The next fact involves a number so ridiculous, it sounds like a joke. Casino had a costume budget of $1 million in 1995. Robert De Niro's character had over 70 different outfits, each tailor-made. Sharon Stone had about 40 costume changes with authentic 1970s fabrics, real jewelry, sequins, and furs. The jaw-dropping part, Stone's wardrobe alone cost over $500,000, literally half the entire costume budget, and the actors were allowed to keep their costumes after filming wrapped. The attention to detail extended to a technological leap that would change Scorsese's career. What Scorsese did with Casino marked a turning point in his filmmaking. Before this, he edited films by physically cutting and splicing celluloid reels. For Casino, Scorsese embraced Avid, one of the first non-linear digital editing systems. Why was this crucial? Casino's structure, rapid cuts, multiple voiceovers, shifting timelines, flashbacks, montages would have been a nightmare with traditional editing. Digital tools let Scorsese and editor Thelma Schoonmaker test combinations instantly. The success convinced Scorsese to adopt digital editing permanently. But while technology brought precision, Scorsese wanted something else on set. Here's something that might completely change how you watch Casino. A huge portion of the film's dialogue wasn't in the script. Many of Pesci's angry tirades as Nick Santoro were improvised. Sharon Stone was given freedom to improvise Ginger's meltdowns and substance-fueled outbursts. The domestic scenes where Ginger and Ace tear each other apart often featured improvised exchanges that felt painfully real. Scorsese's improvisation wasn't chaos, it was controlled freedom. He'd set up scenes, give emotional context, then let actors find truth in the moment. And speaking of authentic performances, this next detail adds unexpected warmth to an otherwise dark film. Is that elderly woman playing Artie Piscano's mother? That was Martin Scorsese's actual mother, Catherine Scorsese. Catherine had appeared in Goodfellas famously. In Casino, she played a smaller but prophetic role. Her character warns Artie, "You're going to have a heart attack." Moments later, he dies from exactly that. Scorsese says of his mother, "She had perfect timing. She wasn't acting, she was being herself." Sadly, Casino was Catherine's last film appearance before her death in 1997. And finally, we come to the film's most explosive moment, literally. The final fact is perhaps the most spectacular and symbolic. That dramatic climax when the Tangier Casino explodes isn't CGI or miniatures. That's real footage of an actual Las Vegas landmark being demolished. The Landmark Hotel and Casino had been closed for years. When Scorsese learned it was scheduled for demolition, he coordinated with authorities, set up multiple cameras, and filmed the entire explosion. As the building collapses in flames, it represents not just Ace Rothstein's end, but the death of the mafia's grip on Las Vegas. Sometimes reality is more powerful than anything Hollywood can manufacture. Casino remains one of the most unforgettable crime epics ever made, a film that exposed the dark underbelly of Las Vegas and the real-life corruption that fueled its golden age. From improvised performances to real mob lawyers, from broken ribs to robotic corpses, the making of Casino was almost as intense as the story it told. Which of these facts surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more disturbing movie secrets, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.